and kicking us off, bro?
Yeah, man. Awesome episode today. 81 in. So thanks everyone for coming. Everyone's going to be watching. This is recording. Can't thank you enough for registering. It's the HGA free webinar series. And Jason Ledlow, Trevor Nelson with HGA Group, Fundraising, Bid, Golf. We're so happy to be here. And thanks everyone for signing up and for coming. We want to keep the interaction going, free flowing as usual. Any questions, any feedback, any successes, failures with these buy-in concepts and whatnot, we're going to learn something today, which is going to be really, really cool. But keep all the questions and comments coming. Chat feature, and then we also have the Q&A function at the bottom center of the screen. So can't thank you all enough for being here and for listening to this wherever you're at. Episode 81. Let's kick it off, brother.
Yeah, and State of the End and Win, we're going to give away a trip that you can use for your next fundraiser to raise more money. So we're really excited about this topic, and I want to just kind of set everything up. So last week, I was asked by a really dear friend of mine to do a fundraiser for Oklahoma State University here in Oklahoma. And, he said, hey, look, we're raising money. We need, we got this deal. It's kind of short notice. I know. Can you come do it? And I said, yeah, sure. For you, absolutely. I will say that's the first time I've put two kids through Oklahoma State. I have been to many, many games, spent a lot of time in Stillwater, but it was the first time I ever wore a shirt that said OSU on it. So it was kind of a big deal, for me, because Boomer Sooner fans all the way here. So, but that's not really the thing. That the deal is we were selling a trip. This was a hunting trip to raise money for their NIL program. I won't go into all that, doesn't matter. But this was a really cool experience. This was a fully donated experience. It was for 8 people. The gentleman who put the hunt was up there, talked about it. It was a duck hunt. It's really cool, fabulous facility, all inclusive. And it was going to be with the head coach of Oklahoma State. So a very unique experience that, really should have generated a lot of money and a lot of interest. It did. But when I got time to auction off what they wanted it to bring, even though it was fully donated, they wanted to bring $10,000. And I'm going to tell you, I took off, started in the basement and started working my way up. And the last live bid I had was $7,000. Now, when I say this, just so you guys, I'm not trying to say anything because we normally don't do these things, but I'm trying to get somebody up there where we need to be. This thing ought to bring about 9-10 grand. And I've got nobody. I'm at $9,000, asking for $9,000. There's nobody bidding. Nothing's going on. Everybody's kind of asleep. And I realized I had a problem. One is I don't want to back up because, I don't want to get back because it's just not going to bring what it needs to bring. And the guy that donated it said, I'm going to donate this, but I want it to bring 10 grand. And it's just like it had that cost. Mm-hmm. So I have a video of it, but the video it's not very good. So I was going to share the video, but it's just not very good. So I'll just describe it. So I realized I've got a lot of people that really would like to have this experience, and I have a lot of people in the room, and we have experience doing things, with buy-ins and things like that. And so I just said, hold up, time out. I got a question. We're here to raise some real money. Coach said he was going to match any donation. He's the head coach. He can afford it, of what we got. And so I said, who here? I need 8 guys, 8 men or women, whoever, that want to go on this trip. Step forward. I had 8 or 10 people said, yeah, raise your hand. How many of you guys would give $2 grand to go on this trip? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right. I've got 8 people. That's $16,000. I want to know how many of you guys will I want you to raise your hand. How many of you are going to keep your hand up at 2,500? Everybody kept their hand up. I said, how many of you are going to keep your hand up at $3,000? We're going to raise $24,000. Coach is going to match it. That means 48 grand we're going to have. Everybody kept their hand up. Now, my wife came back and said, I don't think everybody kept their hand up, but it was fine. Everybody did, and everybody bought it. And I said, sold. And we sold it for $24,000, $3,000 a piece. The coach matched it. And then actually we had somebody else come up and say, hey, can I buy another one of those trips for that much? Boom, $24,000. We sold the second one. The gentleman donated another one. We sold it twice. So, $48,000 before coach's donation that we raised by doing that. And what that made me think about was how much money and opportunities do we leave on the field? And and I'm saying this as somebody who does auctions, but I want you guys to think about this as nonprofit professionals. How many times maybe we've left money on the table by not doing this? I'm going to give you another experience where we didn't do that. We just sold it at auction. So there was an event that I was privileged to auction at, and we had they had the Senate minority leader and the state Senate majority leader. Both of them were there supporting this organization, and we did 2 dinners. And so we kind of had a little fun competing and everything. But we only sold it to one person, and it brought $10,000. Each one of them, we sold it twice, brought $10,000. But it made me think, because it was for 8 people. What would have happened if I'd have said, who all here would give $2,000 to go to this dinner? We're going to have a lot of fun, and say that. Could we have doubled it up? I believe we could have. I have no doubt we would have raised the same amount of money, but I think that we could have raised more. And it really got me thinking, because another situation, and this is all just experiences that I've had over the years. There was an event down in Texas, and this is, we're in the business of selling trips and consignment. This is not really that. This has got to be a unique experience, something that, you're not going to want to take a villa in Tuscany and say, hey, we're going to see, we got 8 people, who all wants to go? Because not everybody wants to go stay in a villa together in Tuscany, Italy, if you don't know each other.
Yeah, totally.
These other experiences are very unique because, they're short duration or it's a special deal. So this was a organization that had access. One of their donors was opening up a new restaurant, and he said, hey, look, we've got to do our run through, our soft open. Why don't we do that? Why don't we just sell dinner, and we'll do it, because we're going to bring people in anyway. So we'll just donate that. You guys can raise money. So they said, okay, well, how many do we have? Well, I think they did 40 couples. So basically 80 people, 40 couples. And so we sold it for $500 a piece, and sold all 40 of them one at a time. We didn't auction them off, but we just said, hey, who wants to sign up? Hold your number up. And it was bang, 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 bang. And they raised $20,000. Whereas if they had auctioned it off, you don't have, it's just a simple thing. How many people do you have in your room that can write a check for $24,000 and not miss it? How many do you have that can write one for $3,000 and not miss it? A lot more. It's just the law of large numbers. The more people you have and the lower the increment, the more people can participate. So that's where I was going with this. And that's why I think the topic is so relevant, because we do want to get those unique experiences. We do want to bring those in, but we really limit ourselves, possibly, when we're auctioning it off. Now, I'm an auctioneer. I like to do auctions. I think it's the best way to raise money, to do that. But I also think there's a way for buy-in. So I want to ask a real quick question. Does anybody have any experience with that, where you had like a unique item that maybe you auctioned off, and maybe it didn't do as well as you thought it could, and this might be a solution? Because I just want to talk through this, because I think it's something that everybody needs to be thinking about and on the lookout for. And if you don't have one, maybe you put one together, that special experience, once in a lifetime type experience. Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, I was just going to say, so Becky said that they did this with a private concert at a local doctor's home. That's awesome, Becky. So Becky, would you mind just type out a few more particulars about this? Like, how much did you sell it for? How many people came to it? Like total dollars raised, stuff like that, because that's a great example. One of the things that you're able to do whenever you put something like this together, you can kind of set things up a little bit tighter. We've done this with dinners, the buy-in dinner, where, it was for like 20 people, 20 couples. It was going to be a dinner. It was going to be at this certain time and date, and everything was set, and everybody walked up and they just signed up for it. We talked about it, advertised it, and they did it. So typically they sell theirs for $300. So $600 a couple, 10 couples. So $6,000. Awesome. So that's really good. And, but one thing I want to just mention on this idea is, by advancing that bid, like she said, usually starts at 100 and have everyone put up their paddles, and the auctioneer keeps going until there's only 20. Perfect. And that was exactly what I was looking for. That was an example. Thank you so much, Becky, because that's what I wanted to talk about, is how you can take that buy-in, use your auctioneer, spend a little time, get this thing tuned up where, everybody understands what we're doing so they can explain it and they know. And then you just get people to stand. It's kind of like last man standing, but it's last man, last people that have their paddles in the air. They're the ones that go. And you just keep pushing it up. Yeah, last champion, last man standing, however you want to say it. It's a really great way to raise a lot of money, more money with those things. Because let's face it, we look across our room and we say, well, how many people can afford, to spend? We want this to bring $6,000, for example. How many people are going to write a check for $6,000 to go to this party? You may have 5 or 6. Maybe it brings 16,000. I don't know. But this may be a way that you can significantly push the bid up on something and get more money, because at the end of the day, that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah. I just thought
I wouldn't suggest doing it the way I did it. I wouldn't suggest trying to auction it off and then break up and do that. I mean, I just have been doing it for a long time, and I knew these folks wanted to do this, so I was able to call them up and kind of have a little altar call and get them up there and get it done.
I wasn't astonished because I've seen what you can do. But it was so creative, the way you went about it, and you were you were at a crossroads with the.
Well, I was. It was either do that or we were going to have
an impasse.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. With the dollar amount, we're like, oh, geez, we don't want to hear crickets here in a second.
Yeah,
it was really good, and I saw the video. Teresa took the video, and I was astonished. It was awesome. Funny enough, though, like Becky had a question. Would you do something like this in a craze? What you mean by that is the all-inclusive, bestseller Caribbean or Cabo San Lucas or Puerto Vallarta, something along those lines. We've kind of all co-joined the craze. I mean,
we've done that exactly same thing. I've done it, but I've done it a couple of ways. So for everybody that does, those of you who don't know what we say a craze, it's also could be a sweeper, pass out. People call it different things. We coined the term craze for it. And so what we do is an all-inclusive trip. We have an auctioneer that did this with a Tuscany trip and sold like 23 of them. So whenever I give you this solution, you don't have to just use this trip, but it's like, let's take a Caribbean all-inclusive. Cost the nonprofit $16.95. And your auctioneer gets up there and says, ladies and gentlemen, we've got this great trip, but before I auction off, I want to know who all here would give $2,000 to go on this trip. How many of you would raise your hand to go on this trip? How many of you would keep your hand up at 2,500? How many of you keep your hand up at 3,000? The auctioneer's got to kind of make a judgment call here, because auctioneers are really good at doing math fast, so they can typically handle this. And if you are thinking about this and your auctioneer doesn't know how to do it, feel free to have them call me. Call me. We'll explain it. It's super simple. Once they get it, light bulb comes on. And I've never had anybody because you get a guy that's a car auctioneer and he doesn't do, but he's a phenomenal auctioneer. And once you do it, they're like, oh yeah, I got it, and they'll figure it out.
So one car at a time. Yeah.
But that's the deal is you're setting, what you're doing is you're just pushing the market. So maybe you back up to 2,500 and maybe you stay at 3,000. We want you on this particular thing. We're wanting people to make $1,000 a copy on it or close. But the idea is you don't have to auction it off. You don't have to sit there and say, hey, how many dollars on it? 500, 6, 7, 800, 900, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000. We've done it the same way, but you could do this. The biggest thing is doing this with those things that you have. It could be a backyard barbecue. You've got somebody that has a great backyard that loves to entertain. You've got somebody in your list of people that to call that have, they've got the best barbecue in town. Maybe you've got somebody that you can piece this thing together. You've got somebody that's a distributor, has a liquor store, brew, something, and get the beer, whatever you want to, however you want to put that together, but you do it. Well, if you auction that party off, the problem is if you buy the party, unless you've got a specific reason, how many people have a party for 50 people? How many people are going to be there at the auction that really want to see it? They're going to sit there and think, oh yeah, I've got a company party coming up. I'll just do it for that. You got to really tie those things in. But if everybody wants to go to this place and maybe you've got some entertainer that's playing music there that, hey, we did this with a local musician here. He's actually a songwriter, wrote songs in Nashville, moved back to Oklahoma to raise his daughter. And we did a deal. He was up playing on the stage, played a song, and then we auctioned it off. But what we did was we put a party together and we did a buy-in with it. So where, by himself, and I've done this, he's done this a couple of times, it brings $2,000 or $3,000, $3,000 or $4,000 to have him come play at a party, whatever size. With the auction, we put this together with a dinner, it was $500 a couple.
Yeah.
And so they wrote, they raised $10,000. So it's really just, it's all about making money and leveraging the law of large numbers and multiples.
And in answer to your question, Becky, as well, directly, I mean, yeah, absolutely, because they're so disparate. I mean, we're basically putting things out there to appeal to everyone, and some people are going to do the buy-in and want a all-inclusive stay. At the event that was kind of the impetus for this conversation that Jason was doing, he auctioned off an Opry package for $7,000-$8,000 to, right beforehand. So they were unrelated,
here's a better example than that. We sold a fishing trip. Same donor gave a fishing trip. There was the offensive coordinator, they were going to go do this fishing trip, and they were talking about how great it was, and they're talking about it, and it sold for $11,000. Had we broken that thing up, got everybody up there and said, who all wants to go for, it was for, I think, 10 people, who all give $1,000? How many of you keep your hands up at 1,500? How many keep it up at $2,000? You're right back to the same thing. And talking about selling multiples like that in the pass out, I want to tell you, our friend Dean Crownover did an event in Atlanta, Georgia. He sold a Tuscany trip for $5,000, sold it 23 times. Then he turned around and sold one of our Cabo trips, sold it 13 times. Yeah. So now there were 600 people in the room. You had 300 checkbooks. There's 300 couples, 300 checkbooks. So there was plenty of money there. But I think that, it's all about planning. I believe in, that if we start at the end of where we want to be, how much money do we want to raise? Then we plan out every piece of our event, whether, the silent auction, the tables, the sponsorship. When it comes to the live auction, how much money do we want to raise? I see this all the time. People say, well, we only want to have 5 items because we want to get through the program. Well, how much money do you want to raise? $35,000. And they've got 5 items that are worth about $2,000 a piece on a good day. Not going to get there. I mean, people are generous buyers, but they're not that, you can't sit there and, exactly. So plan everything back. But if you're looking at your auction and you're saying, I don't think we're going to get there. I've got this great donated item. I've never had anybody spend $10,000 at my auction.
Yeah.
The most we've ever had somebody raise is $5,000. Okay. Well, $5,000 your price. Yeah. So, but how many people there would give $2,000? How many people give 1,000, 500, whatever the number may be? It's just looking at things a different way to get more donors involved. What my belief, Trevor's belief, our experience is, the more people that you can get engaged in your event, the more people that you can get to raise their hand, make that financial commitment of some kind, you've just connected with that person forever. And you can, all of a sudden you have access to somebody, or somebody now who's willing to give some money that you may not have known before.
Totally. And so a lot of times this is a careful nudge. 2 points that came to mind. One was like, a careful nudge being, Jason coined this phrase, which was, floored me when he said it the first time, is people leveraging their giving budget with their travel budget or vice versa. And there's people, we've said this a few times, there's people that won't give you $3,000 as a straight donation, but there are people that will give you $3,000 if they can get an all-inclusive stay to the Caribbean, because that's where they're going, and it makes sense in their mind. It's funny, Jason, the reciprocal side of this is the same thing we talk about when folks are talking about, raising money for their mission or asking for money. We always say, break the numbers down, tell them where their money's going. It costs $1,000 a year to outfit these kids to play this sport. We're looking to outfit 100 kids. It's $1,000 per kid. How many kids would you like to outfit to play the sport? Right? That kind of thing when it comes to asking. That's
well, and there's a great point. You can sit there and say, look, we need $10,000 for this. I need 10 people want to give $1,000 a piece to step in, to do this experience, because we're going to send 10 kids to camp. And all those things come right back in. I think constant message reminders. Now, I don't mean that you've got to get up there and give a 5-minute speech. In fact, I would advise, between every item, please don't do that, because you're going to really put everybody to sleep. But when you're in the short rows and you're really, getting there. And auctioneers are going to do this. Every auctioneer I ever met, can't help themselves. They're going to try to pull every nickel they can out of them. So they're going to do that. And they're going to say, hey, do it for the kids, and it does motivate people because we're trying to attach the heartstrings to the wallet. It's funny you said that about me coining that phrase. I didn't actually, it was not original to me. Somebody else told me that. But whenever they told me that, the light bulb came on and I was like, oh my gosh, you're so right. And it's a fact. It is an absolute fact. There are people that will not give you $2,500. They won't give you $500, but they'll pay $2,500 to go on a vacation that you make $1,000 on.
Wild. That's an awesome. That was an epiphany. The light bulb went off at that point, and here we are, speaking that truth as often as possible. Another thing we were just talking about being deliberate, and you're talking about always remember the math. And I wasn't arguing with the organization, that a member of the committee on an organization. I was just playing devil's advocate. But we were going over. We typically ask, okay, what's you need live auction items. Great, that's why we're talking. What's in your live auction currently? And I feel like with our experience now, we have the agency to question things, not to necessarily be, once again, argumentative or anything like that. But someone said to me the other day, they said, well, we've got a piece of jewelry in the live auction. And immediately I said, no, let's not do that. Let's use the jewelry for a raffle. Let's use the jewelry in the silent auction. Don't clog the live auction with this donated piece of jewelry that isn't worth more than $2,000 just because the person that donated it or someone agreed to put it in the live auction. They should not dictate where these items go.
Well, that's a great point. Okay, I want to just use that. So, here's a great example of what you're talking about. We had an event. They had a piece of jewelry. It was a very unique ring that was made, custom made. Ladies donated. She said it's worth $8,500. I've been doing this for a long time. I don't know that it would have ever brought $8,500 at live auction. Not saying it wouldn't have, but this night it was just this was during pandemic stuff, so it was a semi-virtual event. There was no way. So I said, let's just make that your golden ticket raffle. So they did. So they sold 43 tickets for $200 a piece, brings $8,600. Like, again, this was a very small virtual event. Sold 46 tickets for $200 a piece, brought $8,600. And the lady, the designer, was tickled. I mean, she was so excited that it brought that much money. And so everybody wins, in that scenario, because those are subjective things. Because if you don't love it, you're probably not going to bid on it unless it's dirt cheap. And it was kind of one of those things that you really had to love it.
Folks are going to shop an item like that. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, it's just, it's all about your taste. If you're sitting there looking at it and going, yeah, I'm not going to put that on my finger, but I'll make a $200 donation if I win it. Okay,
but those
fine.
Are the conversations. Those are the conversations that we're having with people on a regular basis. Like I said, I think we've earned the agency with a lot of folks to give our feedback unvarnished. We're going to give our opinion because of all we care about is raising money for the organizations we have the opportunity to even speak with. And then work with as well. If someone told me we're using your golden ticket, and then they said they had a donated piece of jewelry, I'd rather argue that they don't use our golden ticket and use the jewelry as opposed to clogging up the live auction with the jewelry. You know what I mean? I just think, once again, it's such a golden opportunity to raise money right now. There's such an appetite to give. People are giving in huge numbers. Obviously, experiences are awesome. These buy-in opportunities are amazing. They're working. We're seeing those. They're synonymous in every event in the live auction. So once again, it's no reason to flop, so to speak, with one item and leave money on the table and not put it in the right spot. So,
well, I think, and that's why, and that's why this buy-in, to your point, Trevor, this buy-in is a really good option. If you're looking at it and you're looking at your audience, and I believe that if we're profiling our donors correctly, and I hope everybody understands what I mean by that. I mean, it is a very positive term. We're profiling, we're looking at, we know the potential that's in the room. We know who is going to line up, because if we put something in there, think, well, I hope somebody does it, that's not the way we need to do this. We need to be looking at it saying, oh, we've got this wine trip. Okay. We put it together. We've got, Mr. Smith has donated his jet. We've talked to the people at the vineyard. They're going to, put, give us a night there. We've got this all lined up. We put, got somebody to donate points. We put something like that, and we're doing that. What does this need to bring? Well, if it's not going to bring $60,000 and we don't have anybody that's going to bid $60,000, we're kind of, we're going to get up there and we've never had anything that's sold over $10,000. We don't know anybody that likes wine. We need to really think about that. Maybe we position stuff a little differently. So, I believe that everybody does. So if we're profiling our group, we're looking at that. We can know if you've got somebody who's very popular who says, I'm going to have a dinner and everybody wants to be around this person. You've got a singer, totally. Politician. And politicians I understand in the world we live in, but politicians are fine because you can raise money on them. Just don't ever let them talk on the microphone because they'll never give it up.
I love a good politician. We just can't.
Yeah, just tell them that they get 5 minutes, and if they don't, you're gonna drop something on them. So
everyone loves.
Oh, I can tell you, a friend of mine did an event.
A really hard time finding one.
a friend of mine did an event. This is no joke. They had an astronaut get up and speak. He spoke for 45 minutes. They had 800 people in the room. He got up and spoke for 45 minutes. Then they had the director of NASA get up and he spoke for 45 minutes. When he was done, there were 80 people left in the room to raise money.
Yeah, not good.
Not good.
Be very choosy who you give the microphone to. That's for sure.
Yeah, because they won't ever shut up.
Videos work good. Videos work good. Seen that work.
Yeah.
Great.
Well, then you can control it. Just have them stand up, recognize, play the video. But that's another story. But back to the whole thing about buy-ins and why they're sometimes over live auction, being somebody who loves to do auctions and has done it a long time. I just think that there's a way on certain items that come into us that we can leverage to raise more money, significantly more money than by just simply trying to auction off to the highest bidder. And
two things that jump out to me. Okay. Two things that jump out to me. I actually wanted to say, one thing when it comes to people's perception of what these items will bring, don't think with your checkbook, right? I think that's huge when you're putting these items together. And then I'm also thinking about reverse engineering the whole thing. So we talk about the most powerful tool in fundraising, your phone, and the folks in the committee, the folks on the board, and who they have access to. Would that be a great way to start with putting something like this together if it's not just handed to you on a silver platter, so to speak, right? Like
I think that's a great idea. I think that if let's just use this for an example. Let's say that
these things can be created out of nowhere, by the way, with just some careful thought, some deliberate thought, some original.
Well, let's just say that we do have this trip. We have this thing put together. If you had everybody on your committee pick up the phone, do a little 16-second video that said, hey, I just want to send you a little video here. I think you really want to be there because this is going to be something for you to see. Boom. Send it to them. Let them see it. And they go see that because, a buddy of ours always says it's the venue and the menu. And he means the venue means it's a place that's cool when you have your event. And the menu doesn't mean just the food, but what's going to happen? What's going on? What's going to be there?
What's available?
And people go to events for a lot of different reasons. We want to think that they all come to support our organization, which they do. We want to think that they're going to come there to make a donation, which they do. Mm-hmm. But they also go where they want to be seen. They want to see and be seen. Otherwise, ladies wouldn't be spending $1,000 on a dress, getting a blowout and getting their makeup done and getting a spray tan and getting all the things that they do. And making sure that their husband's not wearing blue jeans, that he goes and gets a tux out and gets all slicked up, groomed and clipped and going to be pretty. So that's the deal. That is a big part of it. Now, doesn't mean it's a black tie gala. I'm just saying in general. It could be a very casual affair, but still people want to go and to see and be seen. And having those kind of things, and that's the kind of limited supply, you're going to, like the other night,
something you can't find.
You get to go spend with 8 other people and the head coach of a Division I football team, who these are rabid fans. I mean, these people, they've drank the Kool-Aid, they bleed orange, this is a big deal. And they get to go spend some real serious time with this guy that you wouldn't get access in a normal scenario.
That's the missing link. That's the special elixir that needs to be at your event, is something like that with access. And at the end of the day, sometimes, like I said about just reverse engineering, starting from scratch and putting something like this together, like one of these really exclusive buy-in opportunities together, just going to take some creativity and some thought and asking, and not being afraid to ask people on your committee, on the board, folks that are major donors, things like that have access. Don't be afraid. They want to be approached about these things. They're plugged in that side of the world. They want to be approached about these things. People actually are flattered when you ask them for their input when it comes to stuff like this. So make sure you keep.
Well, that's why we say things like, whenever you do your people exercise, when we say we do your people exercise, you're looking at three things. Can they write a check for $10,000 and not miss it? We're trying to establish, do they have capacity to give significantly?
Yep.
2, can they fill a table? Are they pretty sociable? And they, that if you wanted them to fill a table, they could bring some people with money, not just fill a table, but fill a table with people that have capacity to give. They may not be the same thing. But then 3rd, do they have access? Do they have special access? Their sister's an astronaut.
Do they?
Okay. They've got, they have a house in Aspen, or they've got, this awesome big backyard. They've got access. Just means something. And I don't know, it could be anything. Those are things that
we're pushing people, though, Jay. We're pushing people too, because we keep seeing this over and over and over. Even in our world, it's experiences that someone hasn't done before. It's like people that go to these events. We were just talking about profiling, and people that go to these events, and the allure of it, and the networking and dressing up and all these things. The people that go to these events have probably gone to other events. You talk about venue and menu. We're talking about experience. They've seen a lot, probably. They've probably seen a lot. That doesn't mean they've seen everything. Let's not give them too much credit, but they've seen a lot. So being creative in sparking the interest in people right now is exactly what it takes. It takes creativity, and it takes some thought. And that's what we're seeing in every event that's successful. Every event that's successful, this is what we're seeing.
I want to just share a little story, a little anecdote for you guys. So whenever I first started doing this a long 3 decades ago, I was young, didn't know anybody. I could bid call really well. And I understood the general thing, but I was always trying to figure out who the money was. Hey, where's the money at? Because I thought that was what I needed to do. And I'm thinking it's all up in the tables in the front. And I would say, well, who it is? And that people would tell me, well, this is so-and-so, and this is such and such, and that's so-and-so. I'd get there in auction, and none of them would ever bid. I'm looking at them, looking right eye to eye, saying, hey, it's your turn. And they're not bidding at all. Well, it took me a while to understand that. Okay. And then some guy in the back raised his hand for something, and, and him and another guy over here, another lady, they're sitting there bidding back and forth, $10,000, $10, $11, $12, $13,000. And I never expected it. Well, part of the reason is the item that we had to sell was very specific, and it was a very special thing. If you're not a multimillionaire, okay, because the people sitting in the front of this event, they fly on a private jet, so getting free airline tickets, they could care less. The places they go super high end feed, class. So they're it's not something that it just doesn't move the needle for them. So when you're at that really high level of wealth, it doesn't move the needle. So they're like, I mentioned, I was talking about the specific wine trip. It was to Opus, which, if you don't know anything about wine, it's a very expensive high end wine. It was to go there. It had a private jet, I think 1 or maybe 2 nights stay. It was, a pretty exclusive deal. Well, the guy that bought it owned the jet, he donated the jet.
Yeah, he wanted to go to Opus.
Because he wanted to go to Opus. That's what it was. Had nothing, because that's what tripped his trigger. He paid 60. Well, he had 2 other guys that did it, so they all paid 20,000 a piece, 60 grand, and went, because he was like, well, I'd be taking the jet anyway. So they didn't care about that. He got 2 other guys to help pay this experience, and he loved the organization. So those are things that, to get those people. But okay, let's go back to this hunting trip with the head coach. The guy that paid $24,000 had just given him $1 million match. He had super deep pockets. When we did that, $24,000, coach donates $24,000. He goes, hey, will we do this again if I give you another 24,000? Sure. Cause he's sitting there texting a couple of buddies. Hey, you guys want to go on this hunt? Okay, sure. And so, because it was this experience, but he wasn't bidding at all. At $5,000, he didn't ever raised his hand. So you got to think about, it's at the moment, it's what's going on. How many more people are available at that 25, 3,000, $500, $300 range that are going to spend, 3,000, 5,000, 10,000, 6,000 in case of what the dinner that Becky was talking about.
I'm talking about as well, folks that don't have even that capacity. They're not jumping at the opportunity to buy junk these days. So don't have.
No, they can get on Amazon and have a whole pile of junk in their front door tomorrow.
Yeah, we're preaching this to everyone that will listen. Be very deliberate. Your silent auction does not have to have 50 items. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jason. It does not have to have 50 items. It could have 20 rockin' items. You could segment it into a premium silent auction as well.
Yeah.
And a whole nother version in another area, for instance. So get really, really creative, and don't let people pressure you into putting junk into your live. We've already mentioned that, or your silent auction.
And that happens, and you got to just do that delicately. Happen. I mean, you've got somebody that writes you a big check, and they've got a little place in the lake. They put in the auction the last 6 years, and they want it in the live auction. There's a little politicking that going on there. You don't want to make this guy mad because he writes you a $10,000 check every year. I get it. But hey, Alicia's got a question.
I got a really good question. Yeah, I got a great question for you.
So Alicia's question is, some of these experiences are time specific, like the hunting trip. How do you get people to buy in on a trip without checking their calendar first? This is what I found in my experience. People will clear their calendar for something they really want to do.
Sure.
They just will. Everybody walks around with their calendar on their phone. They sit there and they go, hey, this is going to be this time. Boom. Here we go.
And
they're going to look at it pretty fast. That's what I found. I just haven't found it to be an issue.
Yeah. I'm not a hunter. We've worked with plenty of conservation groups in experience, but I know that a lot of folks know when season is, right? They know it like they know the back of their hand. Like I know when basketball season kicks off for the NBA, right? So I know when the games are going to go on if I want to go watch, the Warriors play because I'm in California, right? That kind of thing. So that's near and dear to me. Mm-hmm. A lot of these folks think that's just a layer. They have that already, queued up in their mind. They know when the, mule deer season is, right? In a certain location. From there, knowing those things and expiration, we're very opinionated about stuff like that. You were talking about buying experiences or special trips like that and things like that. We're huge on flexibility from our perspective, but the hunting trip, for instance, if we ever had one, we would be the one controlling that and booking it. So it would be
and
super, super.
Becky's got a great point. She just put up there about having, teasing the dates out when this is going to be. But, I do agree, but you're going to have some people that are going to spur the moment, do it. And then they go, oh man, I was supposed to do this. Well, let me give you an example.
Sure.
If you were able to get George Strait to do a private concert for 50 couples, now, I'm not suggesting you're going to get that done, but if you did, and you had 50 people buy in, they're going to change whatever it is because they want to go see George Strait. Their daughter's wedding, it just got moved. And they're going to, so I mean, if it's that kind of an event, they're going to sit there and go, yeah, I can't do that. And that's going to happen, but I just wouldn't let that, Alicia, I would not ever let that be an issue for you. I think that you've just really got to make put it out there, tease it out there, but just, I just wouldn't.
Yeah, Becky's not wrong. Becky's not wrong with that feedback.
Yeah.
Amy Myers speaks often about creating informed donors. I love that. I think that's great feedback, Becky. Can't thank you enough for that. I think also it's a cool opportunity. You can tease these items a week before the event even takes place if you're using if you have the advent of an auction website and mobile bidding software as well, so folks can take a look at those preview items. We do a lot of online events with clients, and they're open. What was the one that we just did, Jay? We'll leave the names out, but what was open for a week at least?
And it was open a little. I personally, it's real interesting. I'm gonna give you some feedback about this. This thing was open probably. Like 10 days. Most
flood
everything
of
did not
bids.
have bids. Most everything did not get a
90
bid. Now,
minutes left. Yeah.
all it is advertising, because we
Yeah.
tell everybody now you've got to use software because you have to open up your silent auction beforehand. So let's just say that you're doing the buy-in, okay?
Yeah.
You don't
Yeah.
even have to have the buy. You could start selling the buy-in beforehand. You could wait and tease it out throughout this time because you're priming the pump. You're getting people to be informed. You're letting them know what's coming. And with the software, you're able to send them that little text, a couple times a day. You don't need to just browbeat them every second, every day,
Yeah.
but you let them know. And
Yeah.
what it does, it builds a crescendo up to your event. And then people know it's
Yeah.
coming because they've had time to think about it
Because-
and look and say, well, hey,
Yeah.
George Strait's only going to be here one time. I know our only daughter's getting married on on that day, but she's liable to get divorced 2 or 3 times anyway because we know how she is. So it's her third marriage. We can deal with it. Okay, you know what I'm saying? So people are going to have time to adjust to that. And
Totally.
I think good communication throughout I think the worst thing 30 years ago, you didn't have the technology to do it. You showed up the night of. Maybe somebody picked up the phone and called a few people, but you show up and you pick up the program and you opened it up and the auctioneer got up there and read off the description. That's all you had.
Yeah. Same
all of a sudden
concept
we
in
start-
theory, though.
Well, we started doing overhead projectors. We started overhead projectors shot up there and you saw a picture of it. Well, now you need to have a video because you've got to get everybody's attention. And that way you can explain to what it is. Hey, I want to,
Absolutely.
before we go on, we get to Troy's. So Troy, I
Yeah.
think you're talking about the hunt. Are you talking about the very first example?
Yeah, there
of
was
the hunt?
actually a couple different things that Troy was talking about. It looked like where it's, I think in the spot you can get the donor to
Okay.
to add.
Yeah.
to
So
add
let
it.
me just tell you, prior to the event, we knew that we could sell 2. So
Yeah,
it was prior to the event that had already been discussed with the donor. He was willing to do 2. That was already not an issue. So, I was just trying to get the first one sold, but he was like, it has to bring 10 grand. I'm not selling this for less than $10,000 because of what it is. And, because he wanted them to maximize. So in that case, yes, we have. Now, I will tell you, as an arm twisting auctioneer, I have absolutely shoehorned somebody into doing stuff twice before. And, I had a guy come up to me afterwards and he goes, man, you knew I would do that. He goes, but, you kind of pushed me into that, didn't you? And this is somebody I knew.
Yeah.
It was somebody who I knew. And, he had this experience. And I said, we just raised a whole lot of money. We can raise a whole lot of more money, John, if you do this twice. And he goes, of course, and did it. So I think, you got to have those conversations beforehand. And they may say, look, absolutely not. I'm doing this one time. Well, that's really good to know. That's good for your auctioneer to say, ladies and gentlemen, there is no second chances. This is one and done.
Mm-hmm.
So
back to the point we were talking about with that online auction and teasing the items. It's the same thing. The crescendo that you were mentioning was the exact same thing that happened. It was, in theory, the exact same thing that would happen in person. Is that there was a flood of bids in the last 90 minutes to 2 hours of the online auction. That was a huge, national event that we noticed. So,
time is, yeah. I mean,
advertising these things.
you got to have a sense of urgency and everything. And the closer something gets to the end, everybody's trying to do it. I sold something. I sold a motorcycle on eBay one time. I think there were 2 or 3 bids for the first couple of days. I had it up there for like 5 days or something. This has been a long time ago. In the last 5 minutes, it went up $4,000. 5 minutes, like $4,000 or $5,000. It jumped because just everybody had their bid. They were trying to get as cheap as they could, and they thought, well, we call it sniping. At the end, trying to buy something cheap. So. Any more questions? These are really good, and I think that's real helpful to get clarity on some of this stuff whenever you're doing it. Has anybody ever done one that just fell through, just blew up, just stunk up the whole room? I'd love to hear that. Just if you don't mind, just put in the Q&A or the chat, and we'll talk about it because I think.
No, just
well, I mean, I'm just saying because you could have that where maybe it's not the right deal for the it doesn't match the donors. maybe it wasn't explained right. Maybe it's not set up right. Maybe it was, too big, too little. I don't know. I'm just kind of throwing it out there. You get the
Not a
guy who
bad
donated.
opportunity.
Well, you know, the guy who donated it, nobody likes.
Yeah,
So,
sure.
nobody really
No
wants
one
to go
wants to hang
hang
out with
out
that
with
guy
him.
anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. What was I gonna
But
say?
it's a fair statement to make because
That's
you
totally
do have
cool.
to take that
Yeah.
stuff in. You do have to take that stuff into consideration before you put
I
this
also
out to
think that
everybody.
there, with the landscape of business and what we've come out of in individual communities and whatnot, I actually think that exposure in any way, shape, or form is actually really, really good for business owners. So we were talking about that guy that was doing the soft opening for his new restaurant, and he needed to get eyes, on the restaurant, and this is a great opportunity to raise money and do both. Really, really think that
Mhm.
it's a great opportunity to approach people that own supper clubs and restaurants and bars and things like that in your neck of the woods that want to get folks exposed to there's all sorts of crazy, like you can throw an axe and have your dog run over there and have a beer. You know what I mean? It's like, even
Yeah.
if we're not talking super high premium, there's so many interesting businesses that have popped up, and I love the ingenuity of it and the
Well,
entrepreneurial.
because people want experiences now. They don't want
I think
stuff.
that's really cool, man. So I just think that I think removing yourself from everything that you've ever done and being creative and thinking outside the box and
Mhm.
approaching those people, because at the end of the day they'll give you the opportunity to use their space because they want the exposure, because it's worth
Yeah.
so much. It's worth so
Well,
much.
this is where you go back to your people exercise. You're trying to figure out some kind of really something cool, and you start scrolling through the list, and hopefully you do this every time before you do your event, and hopefully you build this list and you continue to build on it every year. Who do
Yeah.
we know? You know, who can and how can they help us? And
Yep.
you've got somebody coming in, and you're looking through your list, and like you're talking about, and you say, "Well, heck, we know Trevor." Trevor's, he's got this restaurant chain, and I think he's opening up a new restaurant. Let's talk to him
Yeah.
about that. See when his
Yeah.
soft open is going to be.
Yeah.
And
Totally.
it's all back to who you know. If you don't
Yep.
know them or somebody in your organization, and that's where you find out, you you've got this great opportunity for all these people, and that's where these things can come from. Because the kind of things we're talking about here, these buy-in opportunities, that's where they are. It's an experience. People
Yep.
aren't just going to buy the food; they're not just going to get the wine. It's something special that typically they would not have access to.
That's
Um,
also huge. It's like, a closed,
yeah,
closed loop exposure to this place where no one can come in from the community. It's like renting out a movie theater. You know what I mean? It's
sure.
exclusive and it's really, really cool. Sonia, first time guest. Thanks so much for coming. Sonia had a really cool question. So, premium silent auction, is it best to list the bid opening on the event promotion page? And I'm assuming you mean pre-event. And unequivocally, yes, that's what we
You
think. We
think so?
want to.
I've never seen
You don't
anybody
think
do
so?
that. Well, I don't know.
Oh,
I'm just.
oh,
Well, I will
oh,
say
absolutely.
this. No, hold on,
I
hold on,
think
hold
so.
on.
Yeah, let's
Well, I
advertise the
don't.
items. They're gonna be there.
Well, no,
Yeah,
I'm saying we're advertising the item at the opening bid, but you know what? That national event they did. And what I'm saying is before when they promoted it, I don't think they had that beforehand. But once it started, the minimum opening bid
oh,
was on
list
there.
the bid opening. Okay, list the
Yeah,
bid
I think
opening.
she's saying,
Start
oh no,
bidding.
you definitely want to promote it, but I
Yes.
don't.
Yeah.
I've never thought about it one way or the other prior to the event. Usually when we're seeing stuff, it opens up and they've got that 7 days to look at it.
Yeah.
Um,
I think at the very
so
least, Sonia, pardon me, where I got confused for a second. At the very least, we absolutely promote what's going to be there, no question.
no, no, no.
In
She's saying the opening bid though. So
the
if it's
opening bid amount.
yeah, if it's we've got
Okay.
a private jet trip to Napa, okay,
Sure,
and it's
sure,
in the
sure, sure.
premium auction. Are you going to say,
I
well,
could
this
argue
opening
both.
bid's $35,000?
I could argue both, but yeah, yeah, I
I
understand where you're
could
coming from.
too. I think it'd be an interesting to see that happen. I've
Yeah,
not ever done that or seen it done,
yeah.
but prior to the opening. But I think that's something that who knows? Maybe it's something good to do.
You identify the bidders, Sonia, as well. You identify the bidders with the software, so all that data is there. It's awesome. That's one of
Here's
the main reasons.
the reason that I don't
Yeah,
want. Let me tell you why I think I would be reluctant to do that. Here's what I think.
yeah, I
This
want
is
to hear
just
it.
a little psychology. If I look at something and I'm scrolling through and I see that the starting, minimum opening bid's $5,000, I really don't. I'm sitting there going, I don't want to spend 5 grand. I just move on.
Sure,
Don't ever
sure.
go back and look at it because it's five
Yeah,
grand. I don't want to do that. But if I
right.
just see the item and I look
Yeah,
at it,
Yep.
and I click through the page, the pictures, and I read the description. Maybe I go look it up on a map and see where it's at, or I kind of think about it for a while.
Yeah.
And I kind of start picturing myself, going there and doing that and seeing it and what's going to be there. And then I see it's 5,000. Well, that may be a completely different, because I've already decided I want to go because I've looked at more of it.
That makes a lot of sense.
How many times you go and see this, because, it's a $10,000 trip, but at $5,000, but it's all that psychology. So I don't know. I would probably be reluctant to do it before it starts.
I have two things to say. One is absolutely give folks the opportunity to buy a raffle item or a golden ticket, before the event. Absolutely. I'm going to say that completely separate. And then the other idea would be the advent, very creatively, the advent of something like a buy it now. I forgot the correct vernacular because we're stealing it from eBay when we say buy it now. But there's a, purchase now.
They did. That's not from eBay. That was before that. But yeah.
But you know what I mean? Yeah. So having an item, maybe one item or two that you're previewing before the event as a buy it now option that might not be that $5,000 experience like Jason was talking about, would not be a bad strategy. That's my opinion. Sonia, we're going to share a call. We'll talk about that for sure.
Sister Bridget just brought up something about that kind of reinforced the whole thing about jewelry. Jewelry is a really tough deal. Jewelry is a really tough deal. You've got somebody giving you a piece of jewelry. We've got a local jeweler here in town, and they do a basically their version of a golden ticket. They donate it, they operate, they do everything. Yep. They give you a little, you get a cubic zirconia, and they do at the end of the thing, and all of a sudden you open up your box and they know who won, because somebody actually got a real diamond. So, and they do it, they donate it completely. So
that's cool.
I think that there are times the way to do it, but I think you've really got to think through it. Just auction off a piece of jewelry, it's just, in my experience, it's just been tough. And like you said, it can become awkward and really kind of kill the auction. Okay. So Becky said this was not a fail, but another one related to the exposure. We did an event at a racetrack and had a photographer come out and offer his services to anyone who would pay his normal starting fee to come photograph their cars. But he did them all on the same day, and the money came to us. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
That's a really great idea.
I think that's totally cool. We're getting some good feedback. Anyone else? We only got a couple more minutes. Any other questions or any more feedback from you about what worked, what didn't work, things like that? Yeah.
Okay. Oh, how do you do if how do you identify the winners if multiple bid at this opening level? Okay. I'm going to give a real quick thing on this, and we've got just a couple of minutes, got to draw a winner. We're going to finish up just like we always do. We have a lot of comments. I appreciate that because we always want to get to them. So I'm going to just tell you, if you've got multiple bid at the opening level, so if you're using software, you will never have that problem, because as soon as they select the opening bid, it's going to go up to the next increment and the next increment, the next increment. So let me give you an example. Let's just say that you had an item. I'm going to it doesn't matter. It's just something, whatever, whether it's with us or somebody else, and it's something that was a consigned item, so you could sell it. You're making money on it. Yep. And let's say that you sold it for $10,000. You had a bidder at $9,750, at $9,500, and they were three different bidders. This is what I would do. I would sell it to the first person at $10,000. I would go to the second person at $9,750 and say, Mr. Smith, we are so thankful that you came and you bid. We have an opportunity to really raise some money for our organization. If you would still hold that your bid at $9,750, we have another one that we can sell you at that price. Mm-hmm. If you go to the third person, you just did this at $9,500. We thank you so much. Would you be willing to hold that bid at $9,500 if we have another one that we could sell you at that price? Here's why. We're meeting them where they're at. Even in the live auction, it is a 50-50 deal to get somebody to go from $10,000 to $11,000 and go the next bid up. But it's absolutely guaranteed. If they're $10,000, I'll sell two items at that price if I come to meet them where they're at.
That's how you sell multiple in the silent.
Yeah.
Please, everyone, start doing that if they're consigned items or you have more than one. If you have more than one, meet people where they're at.
You know what? I want to do this real quick, and I want to say, Sister Bridget, that's all on delivery. I don't care. I've been doing this for a long time. I'll ask for whatever I want to ask for. I don't have
Yeah.
to. Some auctioneers like, I absolutely will not ask for more than I have a bid in the room. I asked for $25,000 one night. I didn't have a clue who was going to raise their hand. The guy raised his hand for 25 grand. And afterwards he said, if I'd asked for more, he'd have given more. So
Yeah.
I think I personally think that's a bad strategy, because I can sit there and go, ladies and gentlemen, hey, we're here to raise some money. Who'd here give $10,000? I think there's somebody here who'd like to give 10,000. How about 5? I didn't suck any air out of the room. Nobody's embarrassed. It didn't slow anything down. I don't have to sit there and go, anybody at 10,000? Are you sure? Come on, there's got to be somebody at 10,000. But I will tell you, I had a guy that did this I saw this guy with my own personal eyes. I wasn't doing the event. Another guy that did it for $50,000. He waited and he held it because he knew that he had some people in the room that cared and they could write a check for $50,000. And he got one guy to do it for $50,000, or a lady did it for $50,000. Then he said, is there anybody else that would like to match her bid? And she stood up, pointed at her ex-husband across the room and said, get up, Bob, you know you can do it. And he gave another 50. So
Wow.
I just think that we've got to get out of this deal about stuff like that. I think that, part of it's going to be the guy you've got behind, or the man or woman you've got behind the microphone.
You did say
Me personally, I just think that it is. And I don't like to get, do much on that, but I do believe that we missed out sometimes. I really appreciate all the questions. I know Trevor does. And if you've got any questions after this and you say, hey, I've got some more questions, or I'd like to ask you about how to set this up or do that, please,
we're here.
Trevor at hjfundraising.com, Jason at hjfundraising.com. We will absolutely we're not going to try to sell you anything. We don't care. That's not what we do this for. Yeah. If you want some stuff, we're glad to talk to you about it, but we're going to try to make sure it's right for your event. So please just shoot us a little email. Say, hey, can I schedule 30 minutes? We're glad to do it.
Happy to help however we can.
Yeah.
I have a tremendous amount of espresso in my house, just to keep me always gassed up for these calls, because we have a lot of them. So we're ready for anyone.
Trevor,
we're ready to help.
We have a winner.
Oh, fun!
That was the great sound of having a winner.
Oh, I thought you were trying to cut me out. I thought you were trying to cut me out.
No. I'm sorry. I wasn't trying to cut you off. Brother, it's me. I would never do that.
We're running out of time, everybody. Hey,
Alicia O'Rear, congratulations.
Alicia, all right, cool.
Alicia, a big hand. She just won. We're thankful she could be here.
She shared with us. She shared some feedback with us, and now we're sharing an auction item with you, Alicia, that you can use at your next event. So please wait for that. That'll come out to you later on today. The recording's going to come out to everyone later on today. Later on today, we're probably going to do some podcasts. I want everyone else to know about Hey Nonprofits Raise More Money. It's going to be the #1 podcast.
I think it is already. For raising money, for nonprofits raising money, I think it is #1.
We don't want to come off pompous, but we do think it's probably the best that's out there. So check us out wherever you consume your podcast. Hey Nonprofits Raise More Money. Apple, Spotify, Pandora, wherever you find it. And then join us next Thursday for episode 82. Jason and I will be here again. Yeah, same channel.
Hey,
so
I do have this. If you got anything out of this today, please share this out with your friends in the nonprofit business and industry. We just want to get the word out. Have them register, tell them about it. We'd love to get them to do it. They can go to hgafundraising.com. There's a place right there where you can sign up for the webinars to get the emails on it, and we'd just love to do that. So thank you guys so much for being
everybody.
here.
Yeah, thanks so much, everybody. Thanks, Jay. That was great, brother. Talk to you soon.
You too,
everyone
Travis.
have a great Thursday. Bye now.